everyone, and welcome back to the Vintage Sewing Machine Garage. You are looking at the backside of a Singer 1591. This is the one I just recently got. I think I made a purchasing series video about it. The 1591 is based, and you've heard me say this in other videos, I think the Singer 15 class is the toughest domestic sewing machine ever made, and the 1591 has got the most piercing power of all. And that's just been based on having clients who came to me originally for other versions of this machine that had the rear mounted motor with the belt. And those machines are very strong and powerful. Make no mistake. The vast majority of you will be just fine with a machine that has a motor belt. Industrial machines use motor belts. So I'm not saying that you need to get rid of your motor belt machine and get one of these. My point here is that if you fall into a fairly small number of people who need a domestic machine that can sew through multiple layers of dense webbing and garment layer at the same time, like my client did, we tried the belt version of this machine, the 15-90, I believe it is, and it will sew so many different heavy materials, but it wouldn't sew through the webbing layers that my client needed. She needed it for her tote bags, but the 1591 did. And she had to pay a little bit more for it. I charge more for these. Why? Because they take so much longer for me to overhaul. And everything about this machine, almost everything, is the same as the other. What makes the labor so much more exhaustive is the motor overhaul, because you are looking at what many of the fans of Singer sewing machines, they call them the potted motors. Singer did not call it this. I believe they called it direct drive or direct feed. And this machine basically uses a motor that connects to it connects two gears. There's a worm gear that's made of steel, magnificent quality, inside the motor, and then it couples with or meets up with the Textolite gear that's part of the hand wheel. This of course was used for Singer 15, Singer 201, and then the 101, which is the precursor of the Singer 201 that so many of you love. Now, when you're looking at these machines, the earlier versions will have a decal on the back. They're called potted motors because some people think this little box looks like a pot. I don't know, somebody coined the term and it's stuck. Whether it looks like a pot or not, I guess doesn't really matter, but that's what they're called. Now, you will notice that this model has the sort of the floral decorative embossing on both the rear plate here as well as the side needle bar area plate. Later versions, they would go to sort of a fluted design. It was kind of it's still embossed, but just a more simple, minimal design for both of these plates. And when that happened, I've noticed that almost none of them have the decal here, right? It's just black. These are all just little details that really don't matter to most of you, unless you're a collector, I suppose. But just something to note. So, let's say you've got one of these machines. I think if you've seen the video I made on the Singer 301 where I take out its direct drive motor, you can see that was the second generation of beltless motors that Singer used. But of course those motors, they're wider, but they're shaped like my little oiler here. And then of course the worm gear, the metal gear, is vertical, right? And it engages the Textolite gear. This particular machine, its motor is set up, its worm gear is set up where it's actually horizontal. Now, I've been trying to understand why Singer made the change, and I have a theory. It is purely a theory. I've never found anything online. If any of you know of anything online or can either verify what I'm theorizing, or maybe you have a whole different explanation, let me know. Put it down there in the comments. But, at some point in its history, the Singer Sewing Machine Company I believe it had its own dealers. They may have also had franchises. I can't swear to that. But whether it was a franchise doing warranty work where Singer had to reimburse them, or if it was Singer's own service techs, the servicing takes time, and time is money. And so you can imagine Singer, I imagine, this is my theory, that Singer was looking for ways to reduce the service time to reduce service costs. And when they did, they may have gone to the people doing the service. It's like, well, we'd like to see if we can shorten the time it takes you to tune up or overhaul a motor. And you could imagine the tech saying, well, okay, one of the things you could do is help us out by designing a motor that's not such a pain, or it's not so, I shouldn't say a pain, it's not so time consuming to remove from the machine to get inside of, because that is where all the the labor is. And that, to this day, when I overhaul these machines, this is why I have to charge more for the 1591. The rest of this machine outside of the motor is almost with the exception of the hand wheel, because the potted motor versions don't have a groove for a belt because they don't use a belt, but virtually the rest of the machine is exactly the same as the 15-90, I think that's the model, that had the rear mounted motor with the belt, like most sewing machines of this type have. So anyway, that's my theory. And then when they redid, they decided they wanted to do a direct drive motor for the slant-o-matic machines, the 301s and the 400 and 500 series and so forth. When they did that, they completely changed it, because if you see me take one out of the 301 in that video I made, it's very little time. I mean, there's two little wires that you unplug them very quick. There's one bolt with a bracket, and then you have to have your hand there because the motor should slip right out. If not, you can tap it out if it's got a little sticky up top. Point being, taking a motor off the second Singer design, taking it off is, I don't know, it takes me 10%. Right? It takes 10 times as much time to take and disassemble this one. And that's my theory. You guys tell me what you think. I have no other theory as to why, because the quality of the construction of these motors is very similar. I mean, I can't tell that they were cheapening anything. Now, the sound that the slant-o-matic motors make, many of you have noticed, they sound different. They have more of a turbine whirring sound, and not counting those that need bearing grease lubrication. But once you've taken care of that, they're still going to sound different than these do. These are more quiet, but I don't think it's a quality difference. I just think they were engineered differently, and they fit into the machine differently. But I love both of them. I can just tell you that if you're going to service the first generation potted motor, set aside some time and don't rush it, because it's going to take a while. And that's just kind of how it is, Some things just are the way they are, and that's the way it goes. But when you really want one of these machines, you really want one. Now, there is one thing you can do on the original potted motor that you can also do on the second generation, is check your brushes. And that little thing is fairly easy. Now, I've got make sure when you do this, by the way, the caps, these are called brush caps. They're little screws. They're plastic because they attach to the brush. Again, be sure that your machine is unplugged. You never have a machine plugged in when you're doing anything overhauling it until you're ready to test it. Make sure it's running, right? So, and anything related to your motor, you most definitely don't want this thing plugged in, right? Never do that. So as long as your machine's not plugged in, double check. And then you can take a screwdriver, get one that fits. Don't be lazy, and just grab the closest screwdriver you got. Be extra careful, because if it doesn't fit right, ideally you don't want one that's tapered. You want one that actually is, it comes down to a flat point like these, because you're less likely to strip it. And this cap is made of a plastic. It's either Bakelite or some other brittle plastic. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to gently turn it, and it turns. It's not fighting me. If it was fighting me, I would stop right here, and I would probably apply just a tiny bit of heat, not too much, to kind of soften up anything that would be in there. I've had these frozen before, but it's unusual. It's more likely to have a metal screw or bolt that's frozen than a plastic one, but it can happen because I've seen it. But anyway, I'm just going to gently turn it, and I'm not turning it all the way. I'm going to let go of my screwdriver, and I'm going to do this with my thumb and index finger. And when you're turning this, also push down. I know that sounds kind of counterintuitive. Why are you pushing down if you're trying to get it out? You turn it, but hold it. Don't just, you need to kind of make sure that you're ready for the fact that there's a spring behind it. And like a jack-in-the-box, that spring can go flying, and you don't want it flying toward you. or in a place where you're going to lose it or have to go crawling around looking for it. I have experienced this. It's, the other things I'd rather do than, search around in the nooks and crannies of the floor looking for a very small copper spring. So I'm going to turn this, and now I can feel there's the spring. Okay, and I let the tension off easy. Spring's not flying. My cap is in good shape. It's not chipped or cracked. Sometimes you'll see them and they're chipped because somebody got in a hurry and was overly rough. Now I'm going to pull it, and oh, it came out nice. Sometimes the spring will come out and your brush will be left in there. And it's important to get that brush out. You can get it out with excuse me, small tools you can get it out with, but it's important to see how long the brush is. When you first get a machine, you don't know. The brushes could be fine like this one, or they could be almost gone. I had a machine, and it's a very small percentage. We're talking about, like, I want to say, guys, maybe 2% of all the machines I've ever had brushes that were, immediately in need of replacing, or you just didn't want to turn the machine on. Because these brushes, they rest against the armature of the machine, and they this is part of how the motor itself works. And this brush here is, gosh, that's almost a ½ inch. That's a lot of life. I mean, we're talking a lot of hours left in this. Okay, so because when you get these new, they're not that much longer than this. And you can see, of course, this one has been seated when they were, you put the brush in, and then as it runs over the armature there, it forms like a curve, right? And so when you put it back, you want to make sure that the curve is at the right axis, right? So we're going to put it in just like it came out. I'm going to put it back for now. I'll be taking this out to clean, but for the moment, I just want to put it back. When you don't need a part out of something, put it back, because that's the easiest way not to lose it. Yeah, hopefully that makes sense. Okay, the last thing to mention about the brushes. Brushes typically always wear symmetrically. So if this brush is almost a ½ inch, there's a very good chance that the one underneath, because remember there are two, there's one underneath on this side, a little brush cap just like you see here, but this is assuming that, if you assume that, you're also assuming that someone would have, say, replaced a brush both places, and they did them together in pairs as they should. But just in case, check the other brush, okay? Don't just leave it to chance, because if you do, you might have a surprise. Anyway, let's see what there it is. See if I can get a hold of it, or get my screwdriver in the right spot. Again, be extra gentle. There it comes. I can feel it. Well, it needs a little bit more coaxing. Doing something when it's upside down takes a little bit more patience. It's not, like I say, you know what you need to do. It just takes a little more patience. There we go. Now I've got enough to get my fat fingers on there. Now I expect that spring to want to plop out. It might or might not. It might hang there, but there goes my little brush cap. Now let's pull on the spring and see what we've got. And there comes the other one. Now, this is the reason why it's so important to check both of your brushes. 2% of the time, it's only about 2%, but that's enough to be an issue and enough reason to check. I had a machine, I checked the motor, and it wasn't a potted motor, but it was a European machine. It took a good while to get to the motor. It was kind of a pain, but I did. And when I did, it had about this much left. I mean, it had less than a 1/16 of an inch, just a sliver of brush left, right, on both of the brushes. If I had not replaced them, it would have not been many hours before what was left would wither away, and that would leave just copper, right? And when that copper hits the armature, it's going to short out and destroy the motor, right? So you've got to have brushes in an electric motor that's designed for them. So always remember to check your brushes, and that should be relatively simple. Again, unless the spring comes out and the brush is stuck, in which case you've got to be able to see how long it is, and you can't see that when you're looking above it. So again, just something to remember to look at. Make sure I get my brush lined up right. Well, actually, what I'll do is I'm going to take this motor off, and when I do, I'll be able to turn the motor and put it back in there without taking up too much of your viewing time. So let's talk about the potted motor in terms of what's going on down below. I'm going to lower the camera here so you can see a little bit more. Okay. Now, most vintage Singers from this period have a wonderful, I say wonderful because it's wonderful to work with, this is called the 3-pin terminal. And this, I believe, was designed by Singer to be flexible. You could wire a machine directly. By that I mean you could wire the foot pedal directly in through the cabinet up here, and you would actually connect it in the back of the terminal, or you could simply run a different cord that could connect both wall electricity and your foot pedal and simply plug it in here. So Singer had a lot of flexibility and serviceability to a level I've never seen in any other brand. And I'm going to make a video on that in terms of, for those of you thinking about getting into sewing machine restoration, what would your first machine look like? And we'll talk more about that. But hint, it involves Singer. And I'll explain more in that video why. It's not because it's my favorite brand. I have a lot of favorite brands, but my favorite brand for learning how to restore is going to be Singer. And like I say, we'll talk more about why when we make the video. Okay, so you guys are basically looking at, let's see if this will show. We've got a lot of black colors here, so it's a little tough to discern, I know. Let's see if I can, I've got that down there. Okay, so what you're looking at, there's one cord here. This is the light cord, and it's going to the terminal. And then there's another cord that's coming out of the motor and also going to the terminal. So, in order to remove this, which I'll talk about in the next video, we're going to talk about how to take off a potted motor, right? How do you go about it? What's involved with servicing it? And that's going to depend on its condition, how much servicing we need to do. But anyway, I thought I would at least talk to you guys about the potted motor and why some people really, really want them. They feel they need them. The kind of sewing I do, my gosh, I could sew with any sewing machine motor, even those that are really lower in amperage. I just don't need that kind of power, because even the lower powered sewing machine motors from the vintage era, they are so strong compared to new machines. You really don't. Most people don't need this, but if you do, you are looking at one of the strongest domestic sewing machines ever made, and it is because of Singer's direct drive motor, what we today call the potted motor. And when you see some of the inside of this motor, you're going to understand why it was so darn expensive for Singer to make. The quality is just unparalleled. I mean, it literally is just a level of quality that no consumer items are made today that I'm aware of with that attention to detail. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Just wanted to show you, just talk a little bit about the potted motor and how it varies from later direct drive models or motors by Singer. And stay tuned for the next video, because I'm going to make one and we'll start taking this off of the machine, and I'll show you how I kind of go about it. And you'll also see why it takes a while to service one of these motors, unlike any of the other sewing machine motors I've ever come across. Anyway, thanks for watching. If you have any comments to share or your own experiences with this motor, leave them down there in the comment section, and we will see you in the next video. Take care.